What's up, everybody? Welcome into Guerilla Hockey with JJ and Jesse. We've got a guest appearance today. We figured it's All-Star break. Let's put together our own team of All-Stars. Aarif, Deen joining the show.
And Aarif. JJ and Jesse.
Featuring Aarif. Featuring Aarif.
Now with more Aarif.
But no, welcome in, everybody. We got, a more fun podcast today since we are on break. A little bit loose times ahead, right? Next couple weeks are more chill, so we figured it'd be a good time to bring Aarif on. We've been meaning to do this kind of all season. Now kind of was the only time that presented itself.
Have you done anything with your, 3 days off at this point?
I am flying to Detroit in 24 hours or so.
Sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah,
That's tough.
Right? It's going to be so cold and terrible, but I'm going to spend a week there. I'll be back after the first 2 games, New York, New Jersey. So while you're out lollygagging your way through the East Coast, I'll be gone and back, and you'll still be almost halfway through your road trip.
And then you're going to turn back around and go back to Detroit in 2 weeks.
For the Avs Red Wings game. Yep. So it's a lot of Midwest in February, so I don't know how I feel about that.
Michigan just won the national championship, so I don't feel too bad, but that was kind of a bummer,
I had
right?
plans to hit up downtown Detroit. I was going to buy some NFC championship gear. The city's been buzzing, I've heard, all month. The lights, the flags, everything has become Detroit Lions craze because there's just none of our lifetimes have we seen them do anything like this. So unfortunately, that is all gone now. I'm not doing any of that. I'm going to go to Detroit and just be miserable like everybody else is while it's gloomy and dark.
I'm most bummed for Eminem. I was literally wanting Detroit to do it just to see the elation on Eminem's face.
Well, I saw I guess I don't know if it'd be a meme or if it was just a regular tweet that was I'm praying for an Eminem versus Taylor Swift Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I thought
that would have been
great.
But you know what? There's always next year. And so Nathan MacKinnon once said, I haven't won bleep in 9 years or 10 years. And
you can cuss here.
Yeah, so you can say shit.
Then he won shit. So Eminem, the Detroit Lions, we're hoping they win some shit next year.
Yeah, that'd be nice. They were an easy group to root for this year, and then you started seeing all the guy who had been a season ticket holder since 1960 or something like that.
Poor guy. I hope he makes it another 12 months.
Dude, the kid. I got emotional sitting in front of my TV because they did the little intro kind of thing that we were talking about earlier, and that kid had his dad had passed away 5 years ago, and they buried him in Lions gear. And all his dad ever wanted to see was them win a playoff game. So the kid was breaking down crying. I shouldn't say kid; he was in his 20s. Breaking down crying, and I wanted to see it happen for them. I would love to turn this into a show about the decisions that Dan Campbell made, but we can do that at another time. Did you watch?
I don't even know who Dan Campbell is. So
oh my god, I don't know. Dude, that was one of the great I think the NFL sucks. I think the NFL product is terrible. I think there's a bunch of whiny babies in that league. Dan Campbell and Mike McDaniels are the man, dude. Both of them. They're the collective man. Dan
Campbell's this big macho 6'6" dude that looks like Bill Goldberg if you used to watch WCW. This giant dude that played for the Lions when they were 0-16 and then came back to coach them and led
he's
them
the
to
coach.
This.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I
know who he is.
Okay, yeah, dude. He's awesome. He's awesome.
I paid that much attention. No, the whole Detroit Lions thing actually had made me take a step back and just realize, man, in our lifetimes to see 3 Super Bowls, 3 Stanley Cups, and an NBA championship. Don't forget an MLS championship. We've been very fortunate here in Denver. And I take it for
leaves
granted.
out the Mammoth.
Yeah,
Doesn't even mention the PLL.
Is that what it's called?
I think that's what it's called now. They've changed the name.
The wild part about Detroit, I grew up in Hockey Town. I grew up when the Red Wings were the team that we knew that they were during the rivalry days. I saw the Pistons have their run with the Big Five, the Bennon, Rasheed Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, Denver's own Chauncey Billups. And Rip Hamilton when they were just an electric team and the city rallied around them. I saw the Detroit Tigers make it to a World Series. But similar to Denver, all of that takes a backseat to if football succeeds in the city. Mm-hmm. Everybody here has been going nuts about the Nuggets and the Avalanche for the last 3 years, and understandably so. If the Rockies can ever make another run, I think it was Rocktober 3-4 years ago.
No,
everybody
way more.
I was
than
going to say
whatever
2007.
Yeah.
2007. Oh no, I was thinking of their most recent playoff run, 3-4 years ago. Yeah. So and then Rocktober 2007 when they made it all the way to the World Series
and got swept.
And that all takes a backseat to when Peyton Manning joins this team and then they're winning a Super Bowl. That will all take a backseat if they can make their way back up there again. It's the same thing in Detroit. It was just wild to see how it played out.
They don't even need to win the Super Bowl. The Broncos just had that. That's what's so funny
they just
about
need to go
how
above 500.
bad the Broncos have been is You just need to be relevant in this city, and you're king. And
Yeah.
they've dropped the ball for 7 straight years.
Well, I think that can transition us nicely because this year it seems like the conversation, obviously very heavy around the Nuggets, having just won championship last year. But Nathan MacKinnon, I think, is stealing the show amongst media members lately. Obviously, a lot of talk about his off-ice habits and everything he does to keep himself fit and healthy. But just we kind of take it, or I guess we miss the boat on how fortunate we are to cover a guy like Nathan MacKinnon, how fortunate we are to cover a guy like Cale Makar. So, Aarif, I actually wanted to start this is going to sound like I'm ripping you for a second, but be with me. Bear with me. No interruptions, you two. I know that's
260-something episodes. This is not new.
I know this is a challenge for you guys to not interrupt me, but hear me out. Earlier in the season, Aarif, when Nathan MacKinnon was on a slower start to the season.
Yeah.
Was it Nolan Pratt you actually ended up asking? Because Jared Bednar was out that day. Nolan Pratt stepped in, and you were like, I know he's still doing well, but are you at all worried about Nathan MacKinnon's production? Yeah. Well, that's because you were seeing a Nathan MacKinnon that we should be expecting, and that's a Nathan MacKinnon that we're all getting to view now. Not that you were taking a shot at Nathan MacKinnon or saying he's not living up to his standards right now, but you just know what Nathan MacKinnon's capable of, and now he's showing us.
I have to add to this just a little bit because I think I chuckled out loud in the media room because I believe the verbiage was, I know he's over a point per game, but what's just off about Nathan MacKinnon right now?
Yeah, so it was basically, and I even remember whether I said it on the record or what I said it to the people sitting beside me. I said, this is a dumb question. I'm going to regret it. But I'm just genuinely curious. Like, it's not that I didn't think MacKinnon was going to come back and put up 120 points. I was just genuinely curious after the first 10 games where Nathan had 9 points. Was there any bit of a worry, or was it just like, he's going to play his way out of this? And I just wanted to see what the coaches felt, and obviously they felt zero about it because now he's got 75 points in 39 games since. Let me say that again. He has 75 points in less than half a season. He had the opening goal. He had 3 points opening night. Then he had 6 in the 9 games after that, leading up to 9 points in 10 games. Now he's got 6 goals in like the last 2 periods or some crazy number like that. So he has turned it around quite a bit. It just feels like, and like you said, like we don't appreciate enough what we have here with Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen. It's just like we didn't when we had Patrick Waugh, Peter Forsberg, Raymond Bourque, Rob Blake, Adam Foote, Joe Sakic. I don't know why it took me that long to get to him.
Because our minds are on cups, right?
Yeah.
Not so much individual accolades, individual performances. Again, we're a little bit spoiled here in Denver.
Yeah, but between 2007 and 2016, this team did not have a 30-goal scorer. And when they did, his coach ripped him in the media for celebrating it. They did not have an 80-point scorer from 2007 until 2018 when MacKinnon and Rantanen stormed onto the scene. They did not have a 40-goal scorer, I think, from way back then until, I want to say last year, Nathan MacKinnon finally hit it. Or maybe it was a few years before that. And MacKinnon, I think, has done it twice. Mikko, maybe last year was his first time. Maybe he's done it twice. But it was a long time as well. It was at least a decade. From 2007 to at least 2018, they did not have a 40-goal scorer. They did not have a 50-goal scorer since 2003. Mikko Rantanen did it in 2023. Nathan MacKinnon's primed to do it again. He's 19 away. Like, this team went through a lot. Matt Duchene is a good NHL player. He's got a point per game in Dallas. Ryan O'Reilly's a good NHL player. Paul Stastny's a good NHL player. Semyon Varlamov's a pretty good goalie. Eric Johnson's a good NHL player. They are not what they have now with MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar. And what they had before in that past era. We don't really talk about enough how blessed we are to have these guys in here.
You are right. Mikko had gotten really close to 40 a couple times, but last year at 55 was the first time he had actually blown past it.
I think 36 was his most, and he did that in that 56-game season. So he was on pace,
Impressive.
But obviously
that's Aarif's brain for you.
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
correct.
kind of stuff he whips up.
So it's just it was over a decade for all of these numbers, and now we would be pissed if. Not that he's going to play 82 games, but if Val Nichushkin didn't put up 30 goals and 80 points, you'd be like, what's the deal with that guy? And that's like the 4th most relevant name on this team in terms of point production.
I think I've told this story before, how like growing up in high school and stuff like that, I remember I'd always be so jealous of people that covered or watched the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's like, gosh, how crazy it must be to watch that every single day. And to your point, I will also say, I do think, not to do the whole market size thing, but like Nathan MacKinnon has been straight snubbed on 2 Hart trophies. The third one, that wasn't his year. It was cool that he was a finalist. 2 of his 3 finalist nominations, he should have won. Outright. He should have won. And
unquestionably at least the first one.
Oh, dude, and we can circle back to that later because I saw a thing the other day that annoyed me. So I do think there is a little level of it of like, does anybody fully appreciate? Like, I made the comment to you the other day and we kind of went back and forth. But like, genuinely, if the Avs go on and win a Stanley Cup, let's just for the sake of argument, they win it this year. With the season that Nathan MacKinnon is having, and I'm being 100% dead serious when I say this, as someone who grew up watching that era of hockey, if they win it this year and let's say he wins a Conn Smythe, Nathan MacKinnon is officially challenging Joe Sakic for his on-ice legacy.
100%.
With the Avalanche. Like, I don't fully think there's an overall level of appreciation for this era, let alone down to the individuals. Cale Makar was the Avs' first ever Norris Trophy winner. The names that you listed a second ago, like, those are Hall of Fame names. Adam Foote has his jersey in the rafters. Cale Makar is blown by every last number that they left in the record books, and he's already accomplished stuff that none of them did. Won a Conn Smythe. He's won a Norris Trophy. Rookie of the Year. He's franchise. So, like, I do think there's almost a larger level of, like, whoa, nobody is fully giving what is happening in Denver the credit it maybe deserves.
Yeah, I almost want to take it a step further. And if the Avalanche, hypothetically, worst case scenario, don't win the Stanley Cup this year, but Nathan MacKinnon does win the Hart, I think we all need to take that with a grain of salt and say, wow, we just saw an amazing season out of an amazing player. This year was not a failure by any means. This was actually a really great, fun season, part of the building and the legacy that this group is building together rather than, so I think we just all need to just take a step back. I think the Avalanche obviously have a great chance at winning the Stanley Cup, but if they don't make it, if they happen to get bounced first round to a Dallas or a Winnipeg, I don't want to see everybody talk about how this season was a failure, or I don't want to see Jared Bednar fired. Tweets start coming up again. I want everybody just to say, wow, we just saw one of the greatest seasons out of one of the greatest players in history.
To that point, it's easy to romanticize the early years, Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, Patrick Waugh, but like those teams had a lot of they had more disappointments than they did championships. Like that group should have had 4 or 5 cups and they didn't. To your point, only one team can win.
96, 97, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002. 6 times in their first 7 years of existence, they were in the Western Conference Finals, and only twice they made it to the Cup.
Yeah.
They lost 4 times. They lost to the Red Wings in 97 and in 02, and we saw how it ended in 02. Shouldn't have happened.
But that's it, though. They lost deep, right?
Yeah, they lost to Dallas in Game 7 also twice in 99 and 2000. At least one of them was in Game 7, maybe both. They legitimately could have made 4, 5, 6 Stanley Cup finals in a 7-year stretch. The 1 year they didn't. They got swept or they lost to Edmonton in the first round. That happens. That happened last year in this era.
Right, and that's honestly what I was going to say. Look, if you lose in the first, if you don't win the division and you end up getting bounced in the first round to a very good team, okay, you don't love that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the byproduct of a flawed system.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I really do think like you can't get bounced by a wild card team again this year.
100%, and I don't think they will. I genuinely think the roster this year is built better than any other Nathan MacKinnon roster outside of 2022.
Oh, I was like,
Cup.
I disagree because 2020. Yes,
outside of 2022,
with that caveat, I agree.
Because even in 2021, you still didn't really have your defense figured out the way you do now. You didn't have not only the defense but the experience in knowing that guys like Taves and Makar and MacKinnon and Mikko and the guys leading the charge have made it all the way. You now know in 2024 what a Val Nichushkin in the playoffs looks like once he's back in the lineup, hopefully.
And more importantly, what it looks like when he's not there.
And what it looks like when he's not there. I think he scored one of the goals against Seattle in Game 2 in that comeback victory. And then in Game 3, he scored again and he was gone. Or actually, no, he didn't play Game 3. Before Game 3, he was gone. And we're like, oh, well, there we are. But this year what you have. Are there things you need to fill? Yeah, they just filled one of those spots with Zach Parise, who I think is going to be a great fit. We'll probably talk about him.
Yep.
The second line center, the backup goalie, depth center, one more fourth line center. Those are the 3 things, in my opinion, you need. This team is set up much better than any other team, including 2021, where they won whatever the hell that President's Trophy was, when the 7 teams they played over and over again.
They beat Arizona 45 times and won the President's
Literally,
Trophy.
in like a week. Donskoy scored a hat trick in 5 minutes against Arizona. It's an Avalanche record. But the biggest thing for me, going back to what you were saying, I think the NHL is coming around on the Avalanche. This is the first year. It might be the second year in a row where they have the most national televised games. This is third year since they won the Stanley Cup where people talk about Cale Makar and Nathan MacKinnon in ways they haven't. TSN just released a list where Nathan MacKinnon is number 1 on their top 25, and that's just one publication. Wow. That's one company. But you have to understand that over the last 14 years, every single ranking, the pre-ranking in October, the mid-season ranking, and the post-game ranking, 7 years in a row, Sidney Crosby won that every single time.
As he should have.
The past 7 years, Connor McDavid has won that every single time. Nathan MacKinnon's atop the list. Thank you. Nathan MacKinnon's atop the list this morning. First time in 14 years that it's not McDavid or Crosby.
Now, here's the one caveat that I will give to what I said a minute ago and a little bit to what you were saying. Vegas loves the Avs. Vegas has loved the Avs for the last handful of years. That talking about them maybe not getting enough credit, that is with the exception of the odds makers. The odds makers have been very, very, very high on the Avalanche for a long time, and I actually think it was when they had the over-under on Val Nichushkin. I think it was 39.5 they had on Val Nichushkin to score a goal. How many NHL games could he go without scoring a goal? Because you remember when they first added him.
He was coming off that season.
I believe they had the line at 93.5, and he scored a goal either in the 93rd game or the 94th.
Yeah.
And it was when that happened, I was like, okay, you guys win. I officially just based what I think off of what Vegas thinks.
And that was that game in Toronto, and he hasn't looked back since.
Seriously. And so, all jokes aside, I do want to just say that because I'm sure there'll be someone out there listening like, what do you mean no one likes him? They're the favorites every year. Yeah. The odds makers like the Avs.
Yeah, and that's in terms of the national coverage. In terms of locally, in terms of how fans and people view Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, like you were saying, challenging Joe Sakic, challenging the best defenseman on this team, which inarguably right now, Cale Makar is already there.
Yeah. His number's going to the rafters.
100%. 8's going up, 92's going up, 29's going up, and 96, if he signs another deal, he's going up too.
Yeah.
100%.
Yep.
But the biggest thing with these guys is this is just the way we are as sports fans. We will never appreciate what these guys are until they're reaching their end. When Sidney Crosby was doing Sidney Crosby things and people were comparing him to Yzerman and Sakic, we were kind of given this dirty look like, how dare you?
Oof, that may have been a Canadian thing.
Yzerman, don't even go there. 25-year-old Sid the whiny kid. Get the hell out of my face.
In 2009, I was saying Sidney Crosby's a better player than Wayne Gretzky ever dreamed of being.
You're a little more level-headed than a lunatic like me. That's the difference. Now when you look at Sidney Crosby, you're creating this top 5 player thing, this Mount Rushmore of hockey players, because he is that. He's going.
Number one.
He's in his number one. He's in his 20th season. I think he's the only player
GOAT.
ever to be a point per game in every single year, and in year 20, he's on pace for 50 goals. This is what Sidney Crosby's doing. Nathan MacKinnon, we will not appreciate. Let him put up 6 more seasons in a row, because I genuinely think he can do that, of what he did last year and this year. And then we'll look at Nathan MacKinnon and be like, y'all, he's like 50 points away from Joe Sakic in like 200 fewer games or some crazy-ass number like that. Like, then we're going to start to appreciate him. Then we will start to appreciate Mikko Rantanen. In the moment, we probably won't do it until it starts to get closer to the end of the era.
Speak for yourself, bro. Speak for yourself.
To me, I do. No, I 100% do. But the general feel is we will not appreciate these guys until they're reaching their end. And I would love, we grew up as kids as fans of that first era, the Forsberg, Sakic, Wall, Blake, Foote era. Yeah. There are reporters that we know, there are fans that we know that are a lot older than us that will have lived as adults the Wall, Sakic, Forsberg era, the Makar, Mikko, Nate era. And in 15 years from now, if a lot of these people are still with us, they would be able to answer the question, which era is better? And a lot of them would pick the second one. I guarantee that.
Yeah. It's
so
hard to compare eras, and I used the example the other day because I was actually arguing with someone about Bobby Orr versus Cale Makar. And I used the argument of, and again, as a Canadian, you probably aren't going to like this, the older era of the NHL, some of the what's considered the all-time greats, Hall of Famers, all that stuff. I compared them to like the original Star Wars trilogy. In your head, they're some of the best movies of all time, and you loved them as growing up. You watched them. You've even rewatched them as an adult sometimes. But they're better in your head than when you actually go back and rewatch them, and that's a product of technology, in that case, the movie industry, special effects have gotten better, budgets have gone up. Like, there's reasons why even if you don't like the storyline, the newest Star Wars movie visually looks 1,500 times better than the first one. Again, I'm not saying... So for me, it is hard because we are around this every day. And I look at this and I tell people this era has already surpassed the early 2000s era. No way, think of all the Hall of Famers. And I say, right, these players aren't eligible for the Hall of Fame yet. They're still playing. Like the talent and skill level that and to me it's one of the biggest crimes why the whole altitude thing is such a tragedy, because
people are missing.
There's an entire generation of people. Again, forget even just the apps. Dude, I found my love for hockey in the late 90s because we happened to be here in Denver surrounded by, championships and parades and Hall of Fame players and stuff like that. And that was where I started picking up attachments for the vacuum to smack makeshift pucks around the house. And it breaks my heart that there's an entire generation of people and young fans right now in Denver. Forget even young fans. My parents can't watch this every night. And it's like, holy shit, what you guys are missing right now is going to be historic.
Yeah.
Historic. This is the next, teams wait. We were just talking about the Lions. You look at even a team like the Buffalo Sabres, the New York Islanders. Teams wait decades, generations for this type of turnover. And it's just such a crime that we're in the heart of it and people can't watch it.
One of my favorite things from the Stanley Cup final, because all those games were at 6 p.m. local because it was 8 o'clock Eastern. It's always prime time. 6 p.m. in June in Denver is bright and sunny outside.
Yeah.
And if you guys remember, like JJ and I, if you remember, we were parking away from Ball Arena because the media lot was turned into a public lot and it just was a big hassle around there. We parked a little bit away and we scootered or walked or drove over. Like we took our time getting to the rink early. And one of my favorite things, it had to have been game 2 or game 1, when I was driving the Ball Arena and I got in the area around the rink and I saw the amount of people walking, the number of people wearing
watch
gear,
parties,
the age of these people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will tell you this, in Detroit, when they were rocking with the Darren McCarty blue-collar era of hockey that they were playing, even though they had a lot of Hall of Famers too, fans were not this young. Denver is unique in that way. There's a reason why when you go to Ball Arena, it's a karaoke. It's so much fun. The energy is wild because it's a younger generation. And I'm looking at these people, and I had this feeling. I was 29. I'm 30 now. I was 28, 29 at the time, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, there's a lot of people that I'm watching walking to the rink right now. They are between the ages of 14 and 20. What they are about to witness with MacKinnon, Makar, and Mikko is what we witnessed with Waugh, Sakic, and Forsberg. They are going to look back in 20 years at MacKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen the way we look at those legendary Hall of Famers. And it kind of hit me that, like, this era has what it takes to be up to par with. And like, we've been talking about this for 10 minutes. I am not taking away anything from the legend that is Patrick Waugh, the NHL's winningest playoff goalie, top 3 in regular season.
No, but it's just not
wins.
about getting caught up in the nostalgia of it.
Exactly. Peter Forsberg, if he had the longevity that we project and forecast, because it's not a guarantee, we project and forecast from MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar. If Peter Forsberg had that longevity, wipe Sidney Crosby off the list of the Mount Rushmore, put Peter Forsberg on that list.
You're crazy, bro.
He was incredible.
I'm not arguing with Peter Forsberg, but
not wipe off Sidney
I was
Crosby,
say,
but like wipe off the conversation about Crosby and let's have the conversation about Forsberg first, if he had that longevity. So these are not players that we are by any means taking anything away from. What we are trying to say is MacKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen are there. Because to the kids, to the 14, 15, 16-year-olds that I saw walk in a Ball Arena during that Cup final, this is their Forsberg watch.
Yeah, see, but again, and that's my point of, it's not because they can't. They all went for those watch parties and they haven't thought about it for 2 years, and that's the part that's so upsetting.
The diehards will find a way to watch the games.
Totally.
And there are a lot of diehards now. You just said it. You became a diehard and started shooting pucks at vacuum, whatever the hell you just said. Vacuum is, you were using a vacuum as a hockey stick or something.
Yeah, I was.
You said that you had that from watching that era. Kids that were at that 2022 Cup final, and I use the word kids loosely.
No,
like
I call everybody a kid.
Yeah, between the ages of 14 and 20, those people, guarantee you, if it was game 2 that I'm talking about that they were all walking to, and if that was their first hockey game, we all remember what happened in game 2. They have been diehards since.
Well, look at Sheldon Keefe's comments from a couple weeks ago after they played in Toronto, right? He's like, when those 3 guys are on the ice, it's a completely different league. This is no longer the NHL. So.
I thought that was a comment that was going to get him fired, honestly.
I also think that was a backdoor comment to Matthews, Marner, and Nylander to wake the hell up.
You think that was a backdoor comment to those guys?
I mean, it was pretty.
He just had $45 million wiped all over the ice. He might as well have just said it by name.
It wasn't backdoor. He was just like.
he walked right in the front door with a sandwich board hanging over.
Yeah. Austin Matthews, he of 40 goals in 46 games, which is very impressive, has like 2 or 3 more assists than Logan O'Connor.
He's got a chronic problem with disappearing when it matters the most, though, and that's why I think he was calling him out.
Yeah.
Along with this conversation, I want to look at Cale Makar and the season he's having so far.
I can't believe we're 30 minutes in this. We haven't touched on Zach Parise.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
We got time.
44 games played of the 49, which I think that's right there a good sign for the season he's having. But we knew coming into this season, we've heard it repeatedly out of his mouth. He's dealing with an injury. It's been lingering. Yet here he sits at 12 goals and 46 assists. And again, I think the emphasis here is on the 44 games played so far this season. What are you guys making of Cale Makar's season thus far?
He feels a lot less lingering injury-ish than he did in mid-December. I feel like whatever's been happening has been kind of coming around, or he's doing a better job of hiding it.
Has he really only missed 5 games?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's nuts
but it all
for this point in the season.
Yeah. But it all came because you were texting me about that the other day. This feels like the least amount of games Cale Makar has missed to this point, seemingly in his career.
Yeah.
But it all came in like a 12 to 14-day period where it was like in, out, in, out. And we're just like, oh, man, we're going to do this all year. And it hasn't since.
Mm-hmm. Whatever that last one was, I think he came home from a road trip, I think. And they were like, we're nipping this in the bud. We're done dealing with this. To me, man, what's interesting about Cale, and I talked to him about it last year, he prioritizes feeling right. He does not like playing when he doesn't feel like he's at 100%. He doesn't like playing with limitations. So I don't think you're ever going to see him play 82 games, but that's going to ensure he can play an entire season, if that makes sense. If he's not feeling right, if he feels like something's getting worse or it's not getting better, and you can go back to his college career, he's got a knack for doing this. He's very in tune with how he feels. And so I think it's good that, again, I honestly thought it was more than that. It must just be the fact that it came in such a weird, like, kind of piled up moment. But I mean, to me, those 3 players that we've been talking about now for this first 20 minutes, Mikko Rantanen, I think, is maybe the best example of this because he doesn't necessarily have the super dominant moments like the other 2 can. But like part of the reason why I laughed when you asked that question to Nolan Pratt at the beginning of the year is because these are 3 guys you sit there and go, God, Mikko was kind of shit tonight. Oh, 1 goal, 3 assists. Never mind. And like that's just what all these guys do. So honestly, it's hard for me to even sit there and be like, oh yeah, Cale's having a this or that year, because to me, Cale, like, he looks like Cale. And when he looks like Cale, he's the best defenseman in the league by a mile.
I laughed the other day when somebody told me Mikko Rantanen has lost his scoring touch and he's not doing what he should be doing in a goal-scoring way, because Mikko Rantanen is on pace for 45 goals after scoring 55 a year ago. Mm-hmm. And he's also on pace for 110 points. He had 105 a year ago. He's got 66 and 49. Like, it is unbelievable what he's doing. But this just goes back to what I was saying earlier. This is the best built team outside of the 2022 team. Because you look at last season when Mikko had 55, and he's probably not going to reach that number again. He's not even halfway there. He's at 27. When you look at that team, Cale Makar, like you said, he has an act to kind of, let's limp this in the bud, let's get him out of the lineup so that he can play a full season. They didn't have the ability to do that last year. They had to play these guys all the way through to the end, because they were fighting for their playoff lives. And then when it became apparent that they're going to make the playoffs, they were fighting for their division championship title, which maybe those last 10 games they shouldn't have done that. But this team just has a knack of wanting to achieve those goals, and that was part of the goal. So it was one of those things where it was one of those things where with someone like Mikko, with Nate, Nate is actually different. I'll put him to a side, because with someone like Mikko, he's not playing the heavy minutes he needed to a year ago. We're seeing guys like Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Logan O'Connor have great seasons. Val Nichushkin, we don't talk about this enough. If I just told you Nathan MacKinnon had 9 points in his first 10 games, Val Nichushkin had a goal and 5 assists in his first 10 games. He had a goal in the first 10. He's played 42. He has 21 goals in his last 30 games. Val Nichushkin has freaking 21 goals in a 30-game stretch. That's what this guy is giving you. So now Mikko Rantanen doesn't need to carry the load. He can play fewer minutes. MacKinnon played 19 minutes the other day against Washington because you have the depth. There's a reason why MacKinnon had 88 points in 65 games when they won the Cup. There's a reason why Mikko Rantanen didn't hit 100 points. There's a reason why Cale only had 87 in a full season. Because they also had Kadri at the second line putting up 87. They had Berkey on the third line at the end of the year putting up 62. They had the depth. They're starting to have that again.
That's why it's interesting looking around the rest of the league, and you're starting to hear Erik Johnson trade rumors. You're hearing Nikita Zadorov trade rumors for the second time in the season, and it makes you step back and look at the Avalanche's decor and just how comfortable they are with it this year, right? We've even heard Jared Bednar allude to it a lot of times with Sam Malinsky and Caleb Jones. They're more comfortable with this defensive group than they've been in a long time. So, to your point, it's allowing a lot more flexibility for other guys. It's allowing a lot more time on ice for other guys. And even better, it allows the Avalanche to approach the deadline without having to worry even a smidge about their defensive core right now.
I don't think they had a single defenseman at the deadline. They had their top 8.
No. Yeah.
They had their top 8. They have 6 of the 7 guys that dress for them in the 2022 playoffs. They have a very comfortable Sam Malinsky and Caleb Jones of 7 and 8. And number 9 on the depth chart is Brad Hunt, where if you are 3 injuries deep, if you're 3 injuries deep on your D-core, you should be playing somebody.
And it's
like
amazing we haven't seen him this year.
But what I'm saying is, like, if you are, let me word this differently. If you are 3 injuries deep on your D-core, Brad Hunt's not a bad choice for number 9. He's better than a lot of number 9s on a lot of other teams, is what I'm trying to say.
If you're 3 injuries deep, then
you should be playing a Brad Hunt type
Get a body in there.
Well, I was going to say, at that point, it
reality.
really doesn't even matter. Yeah.
But in the 2022 playoffs, they literally had one injury, and it was Barbashev blowing up Sam Girard and breaking his sternum. Other than that, the defense did not change.
Oh, the defense. I was like, they had a lot of injuries in the
Darcy Kemper
playoffs.
got poked by the guy that plays for the Avs. Now, there's a whole bunch of things, but it was specifically just that Sam Girard injury, and Jack Johnson came in.
Well, then Jack Johnson, I think, gets dragged on Twitter way too much.
Way too much.
He's been good.
I agree, but I also think coming into this season, there was a lot of thought, like, really, is Jack Johnson the best option that they have for 6? But now with the emergence of Jones and Malinsky, and I love the way it seems like Jared Bednar is going to approach it the rest of the year, as long as everyone's healthy, is kind of rotating Jack Johnson and Sam Malinsky.
See, and that's what I would do, and I would keep Jones behind them.
In case of emergency, break glass.
I genuinely do believe that Jack Johnson has been better than Caleb Jones on the whole. I think he's been the thing that I don't think Jack Johnson has gotten enough credit for starting in the 2022 playoff run all the way up till now is he has been a consistent player.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has not had many variable nights. He had some rough goings that first year with the Avs, but since they brought him back last year from the Hawks, he's been pretty good. He's been very solid for
I think this year he's really embraced the physical side of his game. He's like, whoa, now that all these guys are so young, I'm stronger than everyone.
Well, dude,
he's throwing it around.
Well, and you and I keep laughing, but, like, he looks confident with the puck again. And Jared Bednar is the one that brought it up earlier this year because someone, one of us asked him about it, kind of like in a joking style, like, Jack Johnson's dancing a bit out there. And Jared even got, like, a little defensive, and he was like, he was an offensive player when he first came into the league. He was, like, one of the first new wave can move the puck up the ice defenseman.
Yep.
And when he said that, I kind of chuckled to myself because I was like, maybe we all forgot that when Jack Johnson and Erik Johnson played on a line or on a pairing at the Olympics, it was because these are big bodies that can get up the ice and score and have offensive touch. And we've just forgotten that because they've gotten a little bit older and a little bit slower.
Jack Johnson in his prime era, so like the ages of 23 to 30 compared to Erik Johnson in his prime era, Jack Johnson had higher ceilings than Erik Johnson.
Yeah. Well,
and right now when you look at the two, you might think like, oh, Erik Johnson's a better defenseman because you are programmed to be like, EJ was a number 1 D-man here for so many years. Jack was brought in to be a number 6 PTO like way at the end of his career. But Jack had better seasons than EJ in his career. That's just the reality, and he's still better than him now. But the thing with Jack Johnson that sticks out to me, look, it's the same thing with the forward core. We can even use this to transition, is Zach Parise. Logan O'Connor, what did Jared Bednar say about why he plays him? I think it was your question a couple weeks ago. You know what you're going to get.
You know what you're going to get, yeah.
You know what you're going to get. Peter Baugh, I did a podcast with him earlier today, and he was talking about someone like Andrew Cogliano might give you a 6 out of 10 every single time you play him. as compared to someone like, let's say, Martin Kaut, who will show flashes of 9 out of 10 and then give you 7 straight games of 0 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Jared's always going to go for that 6 out of 10 consistency.
Yeah.
So that's what you have
It's been
with
a concept
somebody.
that's been hard for some people to grasp.
Yeah, and that's what you
Jared
have with
Bednar's
somebody.
tenure here.
That's what you have with somebody like Jack Johnson. He's going to give you a 6, a 6.5, a 7, which is literally he's a number 6 D-man. He's not supposed to give you Cale Makar numbers.
Right.
He's going to give you that every single time, and he pretty much has, outside of the rare turnover here and there. But it hasn't even been as prevalent as in years past, the turnovers that he has.
Well, and it's help us survive. And again, that's you look at a guy like Logan O'Connor. And now, I don't know, he's hard to say because he's trending towards 20 goals and he's playing second-line minutes. So I guess he's maybe a hard example. But, like, Cogliano, you're looking for, like, help us survive till our top guys get back out there. And if your bottom 6 isn't giving anything up, then you're in really good shape.
Teams would kill to have Andrew Cogliano on their fourth line, given the numbers he's had the last 2 seasons. Teams would kill to have Logan O'Connor in their bottom 6.
Oh, that was why I laughed my ass off at that Athletic article yesterday. That was
the Logan O'Connor,
the mock drafts.
Callum Ritchie and a first.
And it was Christ. Logan O'Connor, Callum Ritchie, and a first-round pick for Elias Lindholm. No retention. I was like,
no. That would never
throw
happen.
5 extra firsts and Nathan MacKinnon in there while you're at it.
Go Byram too.
Yeah.
So here's a fun exercise to do when
you're not getting us to work out on the show, Aarif.
I'll whip out some push-ups right now. What are you talking about?
Here's a fun exercise to do once we get Jesse to run 5 miles with me.
I can guarantee you, even if I wanted to, that's not happening.
Like I will die before I run 5 miles.
Seriously,
a fun exercise to do whenever there's a trade. Whenever there's an acquisition, and this is stemming to the Zach Parise thing.
Okay.
Someone like Zach Parise will come to the Avalanche, and you'll look at the comments, and, some people are happy about it. Some people are thinking it's going to work, which, by the way, going back to my consistency thing, Zach Parise is going to give you what I was just talking about with Cogliano and O'Connor. That's why I think Zach Parise is you're going to have some nights over the next 3 weeks. You're going to have some days before Val gets here where you're going to see Parise play 17, 18 minutes, where he's going to be among the top 5 forwards in ice time. And who's the top 4? MacKinnon, Mikko, Drouin, and Lehkonen. He will have games where he's number 5, where we're going to be like, whoa, Parise played more than Colton, and he played more than O'Connor. It's going to happen once or twice.
The age and the fact that he hasn't played in 9 months is the only thing that I think.
It's going to happen eventually, is what I'm trying to say. But basically, he's going to give you that consistency. But the exercise that I'm talking about is when you bring in a player, and this is exactly what happened to Logan O'Connor, that reporters in Calgary or wherever, whoever wrote that Athletic article, won't quite understand. People that were commenting on the Avalanche's page when they announced the Parise signing, when we're all tweeting it, there's a lot of people excited, a lot of people that are happy, but there's a lot of, he's 39, he's washed, that's not a second-line center, he's this, he's that. Then you go to the Islanders page.
Yeah, that's funny.
And it's like, they took our
funny.
guy, we love him. That's where you appreciate what a player brings to the team, when you get that general. When somebody acquires, who was that goalie that the Buffalo, Jonas Johansson, the Buffalo reporter that buried him?
Yeah.
I've never seen a worse practice goalie ever, which I thought was just outrageous.
It was unnecessary.
It was very unnecessary, but like, if those are the kinds of comments you're seeing from fans, like, haha, see you later, Zach, take him. Then you're like,
suckers.
Ooh, what are we getting here? That was kind of what happened with Jack Johnson, and then now people look back at him and are like, it's pretty good. So that's exactly what you're seeing with Logan O'Connor. To other teams, it's like, yeah, let's throw in a depth forward that makes $1 million just to kind of get a guy in the roster. And to the Avalanche, we're like, no. This guy's important. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't take this guy away from this lineup, which is true.
Yeah, last episode we were talking about how important it is to re-sign him before he gets up to his contract.
Yeah,
he's going to make a little more than Miles would, in my opinion, but I think they will make it work.
What was it, Miles Wood, 2.5?
2.5.
Yeah, what did we say, 3?
I think so.
I think we
Three,
said,
3.25. That's what I would say.
I think we were saying, give him as much term as he'll take, $3 million bucks a year. And
if he'll take an 8/3, a 7/3, you do it because he's the kind of player that will give you.
Yeah, you take as much term as he'll give you, and then you put him at $3 million bucks.
But I think when it comes down to it, the Avalanche will be better served, and this is not a demotion on him. This is just the way that the lineups work. With Logan O'Connor on the fourth line with Andrew Cogliano by the end of the year. A fully healthy lineup, you know who your top 4 wingers are.
Yeah,
Drouin, Rantanen, and Nichushkin, Lehkonen.
See, we had this conversation last week. I do think, honestly, I think the way that line with O'Connor, Colton, and Wood is clicked, I think 2 things have happened here. One, Jonathan Drouin has made it very difficult for that to just be a Arturi Lehkonen plug back in. And two,
He's staying there.
I agree with you. And two, that second line that I just listed, or whatever you want to
It'll be the
call that line.
It'll be the third line.
I don't think Jared wants to break that up unless, and this is the conversation that you and I were getting into, Zach Parise is an add with no subtraction. If you are going to go out again and just deal from your defense and prospects and picks as another add without subtraction on the forward side, then it's going to start getting dicey. But I think he likes that OC, Colton, Wood line. And right now, like we were running through it, I was like, gosh, is Parise your Parise Cogliano Olofsson?
Yeah, so let me get to what I was saying, because this is exactly what you just made as a point is exceptional, what you just said about Parise. Zach Parise, to me, is the Thomas Tatar do-over.
Yeah.
They signed this guy for $1.5 million for 1 year. 3 months in, they're like, this clearly isn't working. He's not going to really click on this second line or the third line. He's not meshing. Tatar is useless on the fourth line.
Yeah.
The difference between him and Parise is if you absolutely cannot move O'Connor off of that wing. Let's say Parise plays a couple games there and he looks pretty good too, and you're like, okay, well, now we have two options.
Yeah, interchangeable.
The reality is they're interchangeable on the third line, but more importantly, they're interchangeable on the fourth line. Zach Parise playing with with Andrew Cogliano and whatever center, Olofsson or whoever, great. That would look a heck of a lot better than like you have Thomas Tatar on the fourth line. You're like, this doesn't
Let me throw this at you, because this was something that I threw to JJ last week.
Okay.
I think the Zach Parise thing is the Ryan Johansson do-over. And I honestly think they're going to try to package Ryjo up in any way that they can, attaching picks, attaching prospects, throwing him in on the big deal that, to bring in a top six forward. That's what I think Zach Parise is here to do. Wherever Ryan Johansson is, that's what I think the role that Zach Parise is here to take.
This is perfect for me because the way I kind of wrote our show up, I had these two conversations happening simultaneously, the Parise thing and then looking back at the offseason, those 4 additions. Because the other night, I forget which team was in town, but during morning skate and Jared Bednar's post-morning skate presser, a visiting media member asked Jared Bednar, hey, what about those additions you had in Wood and Colton? And Jared Bednar goes off, oh, exactly as advertised, they were great. And I'm like, this guy forgot to mention Ryan Johansson and Tomas Tatar, right? And so just looking at Colton and Wood versus Johansson and Tatar, they nailed it, and then they swung and missed, right?
And obviously Drouin as well.
Right.
So the big thing for me, and here's where I am on the center depth. The Avalanche need to bring in 2 centermen.
I disagree. Keep going.
Let me get there. So here's where my thought process is. You know who your top 4 wingers are.
Yep.
Drouin, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Lehkonen.
Yep.
You know who your bottom 4 wingers are in no particular order. Wood, O'Connor, Parise, Cogliano.
Yep.
You have MacKinnon, you have Blank, you have Colton, you have Olofsson.
Okay.
Your next winger on the list is Yoel Kiviranta. Your next defenseman on the list is Caleb Jones and Sam Malinsky.
Mm-hmm.
You're missing a 4th good centerman. A 5th good centerman. Okay. So, let's say you take Ryan Johansson out of the equation.
Yep.
Now you have to fill the second line center role.
You do already, but yeah. Even with him here.
Keep going.
But
let's say you take him out, you're trying to replace his second line center role. I thought you were saying Colton's.
Oh, no.
So, you need somebody to play there. Henrique, Monahan, Jenner, I don't know. Just stick a name in there we have been since friggin' Kadri left. We've been doing this, and then they ended up on friggin' Lars Eller.
Hey, that's 1,000 NHL games, Lars Eller, to you, sir.
So Lars Eller's first career goal, by the way, I saw this on Twitter, was assisted by Eric Johnson in St. Louis. I saw that the other day. I'm like, Jesus, we're old. That's awesome. And that's not an Aarif memory bank. That's a tweet I saw yesterday. I swear to God, I'm not that crazy. So you replace Ryan Johansson, whatever. Adam Henrique, Sean Monahan.
Sure, yep.
Ross Colton's your number 3. Fredrik Olsson's your number 4. You want to know why I say you need to bring 2 centermen in? Because you're 1 injury away from Fredrik Olsson's in your top 9. You're 1 injury away from Ben Myers or Andre Pavel are in your lineup. You have Kiviranta as a very reasonable forward to enter the lineup as a winger when an injury happens. When you have Caleb Jones and Sam Malinsky when injuries happen on the blue line. You don't have that for your centerman. Even if Johansson was working and you were confident with a MacKinnon, Johansson, Colton, Olofsson, you need another centerman because this team has 0 center depth. This is the first year Colton's a full-timer. This is the first year Olofsson's a full-timer in that position. Mm-hmm. If you can bring in another centerman and it kicks Olofsson down to be the extra guy, which sounds like an insult, but you have to remember Nico Sturm used to do that Alex Newhook was healthy scratched in 2022, then you have a full lineup. So
Yeah.
you bring in someone to replace Sturm, you bring in someone to replace Olofsson. Olofsson gets kicked down. Johansson's off the lineup. That's the way that I see it.
I think the way the Avs got into this mess was they got too caught up in we need a top 6 center. I think they got caught chasing a top 6 center at a reasonable price, and that's how they ended up with Ryan Johansson. I think Ross Colton has been more than serviceable as a center, even when playing top 6 minutes. And then the thing that I don't know, like people don't talk, Mikko Rantanen has been good at center.
I wouldn't go there.
Oh, I definitely would. I would definitely argue he's been above average as a center on that second line. And the way that Jared Bednar deploys his lines and the way that he mixes and matches and situational offensive zone starts. I mean, how many times a game do we see Ryan Johansson go out there for a faceoff, lose it, and then go straight to the bench? Yeah. Like, they just don't put the emphasis on physical faceoffs.
He doesn't lose it that often. Sorry.
He doesn't. He wins it, and then he goes to the bench, too.
Not on penalty kills. He gets stuck out there for a lot of penalty kills for the first dump. But my point is, the Avs need a guy who can play the middle of the ice responsibly, and you have a handful of guys who can do that. Logan O'Connor played center in college. He's a very responsible defensive player.
Cogliano was a center.
Ross Colton has been good this year. You have Mikko Rantanen. I'm with you. I think the Avs need to add a center. But if it was a Lars Eller type, I would be fine with that. A cheap ad that doesn't cost much. And then you need a top 6 forward. If it's a center, gravy. If it's, if it is Elias Lindholm, Sean Monahan, Adam Henrique, cool. That's icing on top. Yeah. To me, you need an impactful top 6 forward and then another center somewhere because you have the players that can kind of piecemeal it together.
I hear you. Best available.
Yes.
Worry about center.
Let me say this.
Worry about it later.
Ross Colton, let's say, hypothetically replaces JT Compher. You bring in Lars Eller. Let me challenge you on something here.
Okay.
Are Logan O'Connor and Miles Wood top 6 wingers?
I think they're middle 6 wingers who can flex where you need them to because that's what they do right now.
Can they play full-time permanently, them two together, top 6 minutes on the second line?
Depends on what amount of time you're talking about here.
Second line minutes.
I know. So, but again, are you talking about you have an injury halfway through the first round?
No, I have. You're going into the playoffs. You're rolling with Miles Wood and Logan O'Connor are your top 6 wingers on the second line. Does that sound ideal to you?
No,
I know,
but I also don't. That's all. It's also not going to be the case. But no, that doesn't sound ideal.
Just answer the question.
No.
So what I'm trying to get at, let's
keep talking about this completely made up situation.
I understand your point. So that's number one. Someone like Lars Eller, would you trust him to play second line minute roles?
This is crazy hypotheticals.
It's a crazy hypothetical, but someone like Lars Eller, would you?
Because
no,
with that current configuration, with just removing players from the team and then adding in bottom 6 guys, no, I wouldn't feel confident.
Yeah, you would say, well, no, Ross Colton's your number 2 and Lars Eller's your number 3, correct? If he was the addition,
I cannot wait for the payoff of these questions.
The payoff of these questions is simply this. You can tell me Ross Colton can win you a Stanley Cup as a second-line center, and I would be like, you know what? I am not against a Lehkonen, Nichushkin, and Colton line.
Correct.
But you can't tell me that Colton has to play with Wood and O'Connor, and Colton has to be or can be your second-best center on this team. You can't have it both ways. If Colton's
who said that?
But I'm saying if you bring in a Lars Eller type player, because you just said bringing in someone like Lars Eller, of that level, like you were saying, it doesn't need to be a top 6 center. It just needs to be center depth.
Yeah.
If you bring in a Lars Eller caliber player, not him himself, you can't have Ross Colton be your second line center and keep Ross Colton with Miles Wood and Logan O'Connor. Ross Colton has to be playing that third line role because those are who his wingers are supposed to be. Right. If you tell me you want to bring in an Eller caliber guy and that guy plays with O'Connor and Wood and Colton plays between Nichushkin and Lehkonen,
that's where it's talent evaluation. That's where it's on the coaching staff to make the best decisions with who plays with who. If Ross Colton is best fit to play with Miles Wood and Logan O'Connor,
you want to keep that way.
And if Ross Colton again, and the other thing too with Jared Bednar is he doesn't really have lines. He rolls guys. He has rolls guys based on who's going in situations of the game. On the Stanley Cup run, to answer your question, in those last 2 rounds, there were several nights where Logan O'Connor and Andrew Cogliano played more minutes than who was on your second line. Yeah. So that's my thing. I think the Avs found themselves in the situation where we're heading into the All-Star break and they don't have a second-line center because they got too caught up in it. What you said a minute ago. Get your best available, add some center depth. You need a backup goaltender. And I think you're in great shape. And then leave it to Jared Bednar, who him and his staff have shown we are great at putting guys together who work well. We rely on our analytics department, our video department, our pro scouting department to tell us these guys do the same things really well. And if that's Colton O'Connor Wood, great. If you have to split them up, then if that's what you think gives you the best chance to win,
which obviously is a thing, but I think they're going into the trade deadline. I agree with what you're saying about how they were caught up in like the name of a top 6 center. Like that was
right
way too important to them. And Ryan Johansson has that reputation.
And wow, we can get them to retain half.
Yeah.
We can,
the
name
and it's
like
of a top, like similar to Kevin Hayes going to St. Louis in that trade, where it's like this is a top 6 guy that we're getting at 3 point something. I do agree they did get caught up in that, but going into the trade deadline, obviously line combinations change. But right now they need a guy that can mesh with MacKinnon and Nichushkin. That's the biggest thing for me is
we'll see again.
I'm somewhere in between what you're saying and my example earlier. It's not that they can just bring in a depth center, but it's also that they don't need to bring in a reputation top 6, a Joe Hansen, a Kadri, a Elias Lindholm. They just need to bring in a guy. I did this with you a million times on the podcast together. The Chicago Blackhawks, when they were winning cups, had play-driving wingers, and no team has had play-driving wingers like that until now with the Avalanche, with Lehkonen, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Landeskog when he was healthy, like those two-way forward wingers. That compares to the Hossa, the Patrick Sharp, the Patrick Kane, those wingers that those Chicago teams had, where when they won their Stanley Cups, Jonathan Toews, your number 1, that's Nathan MacKinnon.
Yep.
Their number 2 wasn't a guy that was miles better than number 3. That wasn't way ahead of number 3.
Right.
Their number 2 was Michael Handzus at the end of his career, Brad Richards at the end of his career, guys like that. So those are guys that to me stick out like a Sean Monahan and Adam Henrique. Because when you look at Elias Lindholm compared to those two, people will right away say Elias Lindholm's a better hockey player. He's a top line, top 6 in his prime of his career. He's 29 years old. To me, you don't need to bring in that kind of player. You just need to bring in...
Yeah, you don't need to go get the most expensive guy on the market.
You don't need to bring the most expensive guy on the market. You don't need to bring a guy that unquestionably is a second-line center. You need to bring a fringe 2-3, similar to what you have in Ross Colton. That, to me, is an Adam Henrique, is a Sean Monahan.
And see, really what I think they should just do is put a nice, hefty package together and go get Trevor Zegras and John Gibson.
Oh, Jesus, you're out of your mind with that
and
amount
be
of
done
money.
with it.
How you fit this into the cap? They got $1.2 million in deadline space. Those two guys combined are 12.
Bo and
Johansson.
And then
the other 4.
You get them to eat half on Gibson because he's
for
only
3
got
years.
I think it's this year, next year,
or 2 years.
And you're pretty close.
So then you're riding with 3.4 for Georgiev and 3.3 for Gibson next year.
Maybe you send Georgiev back. I don't know. Maybe you move on from it. I'm trying to have some fun here, Aarif.
Once you guys get into the cap, I get lost.
What I do think, if you are going to chase a center, whether it be this deadline or in the summer, all jokes aside, not necessarily Trevor Zegras, but I think if you're going to do that, go get a guy in that age range and get your guy that you can get some term under and you can have him here for the next little while you develop him. I don't like the constant chasing of the next 2 seasons.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm going to bring up a name. I did a podcast about a week and a half ago. I was telling you about this. It was great content, but I had nobody to talk about it with because I do the podcast by myself now. And I would genuinely am curious what you guys think about this. It is most likely an off-season trade. It is not a mid-season trade.
Okay.
But let's say you take Bowen Byram.
Yep.
Because I genuinely believe Bowen Byram will not be on this team longer than the next year and a half. Not because he doesn't fit, but because Bo Byram is a guy that with Toews and Makar
when they extended Toews, I agree with you.
Yeah, he's a guy that needs to be a number 1 somewhere. Sam Girard's a guy that will forever be a number 3 guy. Bowen Byram is a guy similar to when Nashville had to get rid of Ryan Suter because Shea Weber was ahead of him, and then get rid of Seth Jones because Shea Weber was ahead of him, and then get rid of Ryan Ellis because Shea Weber was ahead of him. Eventually, Shea Weber turned it to PK Subban, still ahead of him.
That was crazy that they did all that and then traded Shea Weber. Like he's like, you just tore this entire core down because of this guy.
But that's my point exactly. Is when you have guys on your second pair like Ellis, like Suter, like Hamhuis, like freaking Matthias Ekholm, who's far and away Edmonton's best defenseman. He was like the fourth,
says
fifth
something
best.
about why they won't win. But yes,
yeah,
continue.
but it also says something about the crazy depth that Nashville had. These guys eventually needed to spread their wings and fly as a number one somewhere else.
And Bo hasn't done himself any favors this year, though.
Bo hasn't done himself any favors yet. But in my opinion, Bowen Byram's a year and a half away from his next contract. Bowen Byram, by the end of that next contract, is an RFA. I wholeheartedly believe the Avalanche will trade him because he's going to look at them and say, thanks for the cups. Thanks for the experience. Thanks for me learning from guys like Makar and Taves. I need to go somewhere and be the number one and make $8-9 million.
I thought they should have traded Taves last summer for William Nylander.
Absolutely not. Taves is wonderful. But we can have that debate too. But let me finish my point because I have ADD. I'm gonna go all over the place. JJ knows this. If I'm Bowen Byram and if I'm Bowen Byram's representation, I'm going to the Avalanche, and what I was just saying about him saying, thank you guys, let's end this on good terms. I need to go somewhere and spread my wings and fly. If I'm Bo Byram, I say, can you guys do that in the summer of 24? Why, Bo? Why do you want to leave a year early? You're still making 3.8. He's going to say, because I want to be a number one defenseman somewhere, playing 25 minutes a night.
Do you think he's a number one defenseman right now?
Somewhere.
He hasn't for the last 3 months, but yes, I still think he's going to be number one.
No, I agree. But like right now, you think he's a number one defenseman?
I think he's having a bad season, but yes.
Wow,
it's kind
interesting.
Is Trevor Zegras a number 2 center?
Yeah.
Well, look at his numbers. It's just a bad season. Don't worry, he's going to rebound. Bowen Byram's going to rebound.
My thing with Bo, where I think Bo, and it's part of the reason why the contract landed where it did. His sample, the
sample size.
The sample sizes are tough because of the injuries.
He's finally got health this year where he's going to play 70+ games. Knock on wood. Hopefully, because he just missed like 3 or 4, whatever it was. But he will play 70-ish plus. I know it's a bad season, but if I'm Byram, I'm saying, trade me this summer. Why do you want to go this summer, Bo? Because I want to go somewhere where at that $3.8 million, I can play top-line minutes and play 25 minutes for a full year so that in the summer of 2025, when I'm renegotiating, I can look at my general manager over here and say, JJ, you saw what I can do as your number one. Instead of being acquired and being kind of like Alex Newhook last year where it's like, just give me a chance and I can show you. And the team's going to be like, well, we haven't seen it yet. You played behind Makar and Taves, so we're going to give you $6 million. He's like, no. I just did it for a full year. Give me the 8, 9, 10 or whatever the heck he lands on, whatever the number is.
And that's where I think this discrepancy is, right? You're asking, do you think Bowen Byram's a number one center? I think the problem is Bowen Byram thinks he's a number one D-man.
And he is.
Well, see, so right now, you'd give him 9.5.
No, not right now.
So then he's not a number one defenseman.
Well, you're not giving 9.5 to Devon Taves is a number one defenseman. You got 7.25.
Look around the league. $9 million is the going rate for a bona fide number one. Devon Taves isn't a number one.
He's a number 2, number 1, same thing.
No, it's not.
It is not. I know what you mean. I meant top pair. But no, I agree. Bowen Byram, in my opinion, has that high of a ceiling. Is he up for that? Is he able to get that contract right now? But what I'm trying to say is by the summer of 2025, he's getting that contract somewhere. Someone is going to trade for Bowen Byram, and he's going to do for the new team what the Avalanche have been.
Do you work for Bowen Byram or something?
Let me finish. What the Avalanche have been so good at doing with guys like Nichushkin, Taves, MacKinnon, where they acquire these guys that have their career high is 35 points,
right?
And then they come here and they put up 60, 70, and people are like, where did you find this gem? That's what's going to happen with Bo on his next team. I genuinely feel he's a number one guy. But let me get to the hypothetical situation that I have. Most likely a summer, but most likely, but it's something fun for the trade deadline, which, again, it's not going to happen. It's too big of a trade. Let's say you take Bowen Byram. You call up the Minnesota Wild, and you say, your defense, all you have is this right shot guy. All you have is this right shot guy named Brock Faber, who's electric. Jared Spurgeon's old. You lost Matt Dumba. Your D's nothing but this guy, Brock Faber. At forward, you have Kaprizov. You have Marco Rossi coming. He's there now. He's playing well. Matthew Boldy's showing some strengths. You have young forwards that can offset this cost. How do you guys feel about taking your center depth and giving us Joel Eriksson Ek?
I wouldn't pay Bowen Byram for him.
I would.
$10 million for Bowen Byram, then he's willing to just give him away for Joel Eriksson Ek. I can't figure you out, Aarif.
So Joel Eriksson Ek, to me, right now, today, has better value than Bowen Byram today, and that's because of what we were just saying. Bowen Byram's struggling a little bit. But Eriksson Ek is coming off a 60-something point season. He's got 39 and 49. He's on pace for 35 goals. He's a guy that is 26 years old. He will turn 27. Literally, he turned 27 yesterday. Now, he did turn 27 years old yesterday.
Okay.
He is locked up for 4 years at $5.25 million.
Yep.
Great number.
Yep.
The age is right there. He's a couple years younger than Nathan MacKinnon. He's a guy that last year put up 61. He's on pace for more than that this year. He scores shorthanded goals. He scores power play goals. He scores even strength goals. He plays over 20 minutes a night. He's coming off 2 years at 18-plus minutes a night. He is a bona fide top 6, number 2 for the future forever second line center.
Very definitive.
Forever and ever and
Yeah,
ever.
I was gonna say.
But what I'm trying to say is, like, he's not like an Adam Henrique, Sean Monahan, where it's like, well, sometimes we'll put Henrique there, sometimes we'll put Colton there. No, he is clearly ahead of Ross Colton.
Okay.
He is unquestionably the Kadri to your Comfer. Comfer was your number 3. Kadri's automatically better than that guy in the lineup. That's what Joel Eriksson Ek gives you. So let's say it was a hypothetical trade deadline deal, which again isn't going to happen. One of my favorite things that happened last year at the deadline, when we saw way more moves than in years past, was when the Rangers went out and acquired Vladimir Tarasenko. They brought in that secondary piece to also fill a hole, Nico Mikkola. When Toronto went out and got Ryan O'Reilly, they brought in that secondary piece to also fill a hole, Nola Chari on their 4th line. So what if the Colorado Avalanche called up the Minnesota Wild and said, we'll give you Bowen Byram for Joel Eriksson Ek. We also have to fill a hole at 2 for the goalie. So throw in Marc-Andre Fleury.
Oh, all right. You've lost all credibility
Throw
with this
in a draft
conversation.
pick.
I
I'm
was
on
going to
board.
let you keep talking until you
Throw
said
in a-
Marc.
throw in
What's
a
the next
draft
topic?
pick.
We're not
Throw
listening
in
about
Callum
Marc-Andre
Ritchie.
Fleury anymore.
Goaltending. How do we solve the goaltending?
Time out.
I like it, Aarif.
800, 900 save percentage Marc-Andre Fleury at the end of his career. You wouldn't trust
Oh, my
that
God.
to give. You wouldn't trust that
Oh,
to
my
give you
God.
10 starts out of the last 33.
You can talk to me. I'm with it.
10 starts out of I'm not asking him to replace Georgiev. I'm not asking him to be Pavel Francouz. I'm asking him to be freaking better than Justus Annunen and Ivan Prosvetov.
And his recent playoff track record says he is not.
Nobody cares about his playoff track record. I'm talking about regular season to keep Georgiev fresh. Who's your goalie in the playoffs?
It's Georgiev.
Georgiev.
Right.
In order to get Georgiev to the playoffs, you need him to not play 28 of the next 33.
Mm-hmm.
Fleury can give you 12 of the next 33, and Georgiev plays 21, so he's fresh for the playoffs.
but when you bring in a goalie like that there's an immediate, the second Georgiev's save percentage dips again, every time a goal goes in, the ISO cam goes to Marc-Andre Fleury. And every fucking question becomes, when are you going to play Flower? Is Marc-Andre Fleury going to get a look? You just can't do that.
If Francouz was healthy, would that not be happening? Francouz was healthy in 2022. Was that not happening with Darcy Kemper?
No.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
No, it wasn't. He
Frankie-
swept the Edmonton Oilers. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. We're going back to
That's
Kemp's.
because-
he's
that's
our
because-
unquestioned.
That's because
unquestioned number
Games
1.
3 and 4 were not as good as his shutout in
this is
Game 2.
nonsensical.
Game 2, he had a shutout.
This
Game
is
3,
nonsensical.
Edmonton started to score more. Game 4, they won 6-5. Zach Kassian scored on him. So they were like, Frankie, just get us this damn series. All right, Darcy, you ready? Is your eye working? Let's get you in there.
Like, I think so.
But when Grubauer and Francouz were there, Frankie always had the better save percentage. It was always,
And
you sure
it was
he's the
Grubauer
starter?
unequivocally. That's what I'm saying. You
So
cannot.
So that's exactly what I'm saying. No matter what the hell Georgiev does, and no matter what the hell Fleury does,
Yeah,
it is
but
unequivocally
dude, you're
Georgiev.
out of your mind because you're talking about in the past examples you're using are definitive backup goaltenders. They were the backup. Hold on. He's a number 1 right now.
He's a number 1 because Gustafsson's hurt.
Oh, okay, he's a number 1. He's the number 1. He's been the number 1 in his entire career. He won the Vezina 2 years ago. He's Marc-Andre Fleury. Hold on, you talked for 15 straight minutes.
I did.
He's Marc-Andre Fleury. He's always going to get that benefit of the doubt. He literally caused Cam Talbot to leave over this exact situation. Alexander Georgiev is a fragile goaltender right now. He's getting frustrated. He's looking over his shoulder. He hasn't broken 900 as a season save percentage since like November. Adding a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury breathing down his neck would not be a good idea. That doesn't make any sense.
Did you feel the same way about John Quick joining the Rangers, breathing down Igor's neck?
No, because he's in a backup
John Quick's
unquestionably for the last 4 years.
Okay,
I think
Fleury has been too.
No, he hasn't. In what?
Fleury doesn't start.
What universe are you watching Marc-Andre Fleury play in?
Who started the playoffs between Talbot and Fleury?
And every time the puck went in the net, the camera shot to Fleury, and then he started getting starts halfway through the series.
Okay, so
this is my point.
Okay, but let's say they go a different route. Let's say they trade for Sean Monahan.
More hypotheticals. Good. Yeah, let's go.
Let's say this is trade deadline fodder. It's what you have to work with. Hypotheticals. Let's say they go out and trade for Sean Monahan, and part of that deal, they throw in Jake Allen at half retained at like $1.8 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Jake Allen's also a good goalie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So let's say they do that example. So I don't think it's the idea of a goalie to help
I think that's
Georgiev.
way better.
So I don't think your issue is with somebody to help Georgiev. I think your issue
the Marc-Andre Fleury circus.
Marc-Andre Fleury's larger than life kind of name.
As soon as he comes in, he's a fan favorite. He's a whatever, and that it's an immediate distraction.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Maybe that's not something they want, but the reality is the one thing that I will say is even if it's somebody like Jake Allen, as soon as Georgiev stops playing well, they're going to pan to that guy too. It's not going to be the same kind of fanfare and craze of a Marc-Andre Fleury who's very larger than life. It would have to be a conversation with him and with his psychotic agent to say, hey, sir, we are bringing you in here to be the Jonathan Quick to Igor Shesterkin. You are here to give us good games. Can you do that? No?
And see, I just don't think that.
So I agree with you on the larger than life thing. So let's wipe that. Maybe it's a Jake Allen or someone like that.
When you even go back to when they brought in Georgiev at the start of last year, we all went to media day, the Stanley Cup sitting next to the thing, the stage, and again, we are 3 months removed from Pavel Francouz sweeping Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers. And so we were all like, ooh, is this an open competition? And Jared Bednar got up there and said, nope, it's not. This is Alexander Georgiev's net.
And I love that he does that.
And I agree with you. And with Jake Allen, it would be the same thing. Yeah. This is Georgiev's net. Jake Allen has been brought in to bring experience, this, that, and the other, be a great backup. With Marc-Andre Fleury, I hadn't even thought about Alan Walsh. You can't do that. You can't be like, no, this is he's here to be the backup. It would immediately cause a stir. Yeah. Fans would be up in arms. Alan Walsh should be tweeting about you every other night, anytime Georgiev had a bad night.
Bednar soared.
I keep seeing all this Marc-Andre Fleury stuff. And if they do it, I'll eat all these words. I just think that would be insane to do with what you're seeing out of Georgiev right now, where you're trying every night to get him right. Yeah. To bring in a guy
But I think you both just touched on how much you love Jared Bednar's confidence and his ability to say this is black or white, right? So I don't think he would lose that. Yeah.
I just think Marc-Andre Fleury, larger than life, is a good way of putting it. I think Marc-Andre Fleury just changes things because they honestly, they brought him in to help stabilize a backup position in Minnesota, and it led to Cam Talbot literally requesting a trade 3 months later.
The Georgiev thing, I think Jared will still unequivocally be like, Marc-Andre Fleury is here to be the number 2 guy,
right? But
the prankster in the locker room or whatever the hell.
But so let's also go back to something that Jared Bednar said in Philadelphia just 2 weeks ago when he dressed Jussi Sananen and Ivan Prosvetov. We asked him about it after the game, and he said, I did that so I wasn't tempted. I didn't tempt myself, is what he said. Was that if Juice was having a bad game, I didn't even have the option to look down the bench and put Georgiev in. And again, we've seen that Jared Bednar has his safety blankets, and you just won't convince me that any NHL coach, if your goalie's starting to, and you can look down and Marc-Andre Fleury, the second most winning goaltender in NHL history, is sitting right there, that you aren't
smiling,
going to be a little bit more tempted. Right. Dope-ass fucking burgundy pads, you wouldn't be tempted to put him in.
I think it's so funny that he looks over at Prosvetov. He's like, oh, I'm not even tempted to put him in.
You're just sit there and can let in 10. You're not going in, buddy. Okay, so I do agree with that. But, moral of the story, going back to the initial thing.
We talked about Eric Sinek on here like 2 months ago. I like the idea. So, very briefly in passing.
Joel Eric Sinek, if you take him off of the roster that the Minnesota Wild have, they still have Marco Rossi and Ryan Hartman, who was a top 6 center for them last year.
Well, and they need to rebuild anyways.
They need to rebuild anyway, but whatever. They have forward pieces. Matt Boldy's a 30-goal scorer. Kaprizov is still Kaprizov. Like, they have those pieces.
For 1 second, I thought you were going to try to put together a hypothetical trade for Kaprizov, and I was like, I'm all in, but let's hear this. Yeah.
But when you look at their defense, with Jared Spurgeon having, hip, knee, 17,000 injuries, he's going to be out for the next 18 to 24 years or whatever the hell's going on with him.
It was when they're done paying Parise.
Yeah, so with Spurgeon's injury issues, your top D pair right now is Middleton Faber. Could you imagine the Minnesota, from their point of view, because you have to look at it from 2 points of view so that you don't end up with Logan O'Connor, Callum Ritchie, the first one home. They're like, yeah, this is great for Calgary. And the Avs are like, hello.
Yeah.
Looking at it from their point of view, Brock Faber is electric.
Okay.
He is unbelievable. You got a 22-year-old Brock Faber and a 22-year-old Bowen Byram. for the rest of your pretty much next 10, 15 years. It could take you 5 years to rebuild, and they'll still be in there.
Now here's the one part of this. I don't think this is as big of a thing anymore, but Joe Sakic has showed, and Chris McFarland, that they work very, very hard to avoid this. I don't know if they'd want to send a defenseman that they think could be a number one electric defenseman for the rest of his career inside the division. I don't think you want to be having to go through Bowen Byram if you really think he's going to be that high. Here's the other thing that I just found so funny, and I wanted to verify it before I said this, just because you mentioned the Elias Lindholm, that mock trade the other day. The Avs would be losing 4 goals on the season by including Logan O'Connor in that trade.
Isn't that wild? Elias Lindholm this year is not playing well enough.
He has 9 goals.
Elias Lindholm is not playing well enough to me to be considered a level above Henrique and Monahan. In fact, I would arguably say he's a level below.
I would definitely argue that. He had the 142-goal season, which was outrageous, in the same year that everyone on the Calgary Flames had a career year. And other than that, he has been average.
Yeah. Moral of the story, moral of this idea that I'm trying to throw out there is the Avalanche cannot trade for green apples. They cannot trade for Shane Pinto, who scored 20 goals last year, and be like, well, he's going to elevate. Because that's what they had in Newhook.
Ooh, see, I disagree.
So I like Pinto.
Again, but you got to feel better about it than Newhook.
Yeah.
You're 100%
I like Pinto,
correct.
But like, it's basically Newhook. Because a year and a half ago, we looked at Newhook the way I just said Pinto, and your eyes lit up. Like, that's how we looked at Newhook.
You know who I really wanted was Troy Terry.
There's another one. Bingo. Yeah. Back then, before he had really taken off, now he's shown he's that
right.
guy.
And he signed. Yeah. All that
so the Avalanche can't get a green apple, but they need to stop this thing post Kadri, where it's only been a year and a half, where it's
even Kadri,
Comfort, Eller, and
even Kadri. I'm sorry, you went a different direction than I did. Even Kadri, that obviously worked out really well, but like, hey, get someone in here that's here. And not we're already looking at when that contract expires, what's happening next.
Okay.
That's, again, and that's a bigger picture. That's probably a summer move, whatever.
So Joel Eriksson-Ek has a modified no-trade clause that kicks in next season. He makes $5.25 million for this year plus 5. $5.25 million for 5 years.
See, a term like that is a guy that I would like to see them bring in. A term like that
just makes all the sense in the world. You look at the Minnesota Wild's lineup chart. He's on their top power play unit. You look at the Minnesota Wild's penalty kill. He's on their top penalty killing unit. He is their top center. Right now they're playing Marco Rossi ahead of him, but that's a kid that hasn't even hit 40 points in his career. He is a bona fide number 2 defenseman, where it goes back to that question of the depth. Unquestionably, Colton is your number 3. Eriksson-Ek's your number 2. Colton's locked up for 3 more years at 4. This guy's locked up for 5 more years at 5.2, and MacKinnon is locked up at 12.6. You put that all together, and you have your top 3 centers making a hell of a lot less than many other teams, because they're coming in at around 20-something million, to be exact, 21.85 million for your top 3 centers, which is a good number, because 21.85 is already less than Matthews Tavares. Already less than a lot of top 2 centers. Yeah, Barkov makes 10. Their next guy, Reinhardt's probably going to sign for 9. That's 19 million. I know Reinhardt's been playing on the wing lately, but you get the point. 21 for your top 3 centers, knowing they are all bona fide players. That's the kind of guy I'm looking at. And when you have a trade chip like Bowen Byram, who you hate to lose, but you are clearly losing to fill another role.
When they signed Taves for the term that they did, I thought that was kind of to me,
that was it.
If you wouldn't have re-signed Taves, that was them saying this, it's Bowen Byram and Cale Makar at the top of our lineup. When they re-signed Taves, I think you were moving one of those guys.
Sam Girard, people say, well, why not trade Sam Girard and keep Bo? Because Sam Girard doesn't have a niche to go somewhere and be a number 1. Maybe he does. But he is going to stay in his role at $5 million, similar to Eriksson-Ek having term. Girard's has term, as the number 3, number 4 with Josh Manson. Eventually you're replacing Manson because he's getting older. Bowen Byram needs to go somewhere to be the number 1. The same way Nashville had to trade Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson. They took a surplus. Johansson.
Well, I forgot that was the deal.
But like Ryan Johansson went to Nashville, a team that had a surplus of D, and people were like pulling their hair out, like, how do you trade Seth Jones?
Mm-hmm.
They got the guy they needed for him, a top line center. Same thing with the Avalanche. The Avalanche have Cale Makar, Devon Taves, Sam Girard, Josh Manson, and this kid named Sam Olinsky, who I think is a player. He's a top 4 guy, in my opinion, in the future.
Yep.
So you have these 5 names, and then number 6, you can fill it with the Jack Johnson or the next Jack Johnson. Who cares?
Yep.
You need another center this is the deal that makes the most sense to me. Again, it's too big of a deal to do at the trade deadline. I don't think too much about the in the division thing, because if you're Joe Sakic, Chris McFarland, Jared Bednar, and everybody else that's making a decision, you're looking at it and saying, okay, we're going to give Bowen Byram to Brock Faber, and they're going to be pretty damn good together. But you know what? They'll go up against Makar and Taves, and we'll be good too, because now we have Joel Eriksson-Ek as a second-line center who is a two-way forward playing with Nichushkin and MacKinnon. That's your shutdown line, and they're all going to score 70 points.
Yeah, I think you're a little higher on Eriksson-Ek than I am, but
I'm very high on that dude. His contract, the way he plays, his age, everything about it just says you know what you're going to get from this player, not green apples, Shane Pinto, Alex Newhook, Ridley Gregg, or whoever.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I just
have I talked your ears off yet?
You guys lost me a long time ago.
Well, I was gonna say, just historically speaking, I don't think the Avs would move a player like that in division.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, get a third team involved. I don't know, but I like Eriksson-Ek. I like the idea of a younger guy taking that role.
Yeah. So that's ultimately, and he's in that prime age, but if it's not Eriksson-Ek, you're looking for the next guy like that. Don't go out and get the Kevin Hayes or the Kuznetsov or the Henrique for 2 years or whatever. Like, go out and find the next guy that you can fill there for a half a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Go out and get that next guy that can be your number two. It could have been solved as easily as signing Ryan O'Reilly for 4 or 5 years this summer, but I think that was a two-way street. Nice. I think he didn't want to come here and wanted to go to Nashville. They made it they realized quickly they couldn't get him, so they went out and traded for Johansson. But Ryan O'Reilly at 4 times 4.5. Well, there's your almost half a decade of a second-line center. So let's stop with this one guy here, one guy there. Newhook didn't end up being the guy that they thought he would. Find the next guy who is that guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, this podcast is running long. I'm even bored just sitting here listening to you guys. So
JJ's got 60 minutes, the limit. As soon as you hit 60, it's like, flatline.
We're usually like 45.
Yeah, you said you had ADD. I'm the one that can't pay attention anymore. So I just want to finish with this conversation. Trade deadline aside, hypotheticals aside as well, what do you guys want to see out of the rest of the Avalanche season? What do you want to? What are you looking forward to? What do you hold your hopes high for? Obviously, a Stanley Cup is everybody's answer, but realistically, what are some storylines, guys, stats that you're keeping an eye on for the rest of the season?
There's nothing in particular. I was thinking about it yesterday. Jay's sitting over here on the couch. I'm so excited for him to get to experience playoff hockey. And I love this time of year where we're into the back half of the season and teams are starting to separate. Less so this year. There's more parity than ever. But, your bottom feeder teams are your bottom feeder teams. The teams at the top really start to gear it up. The hockey, the intensity just starts to pick up. And then, we've spent this pod, rumors and hypotheticals and this, that, and the other. But it is like that's what this next 6 weeks is about. How are the teams that you follow, the teams that you're a fan of, the teams that are rivals, whatever, how do they improve? How do they get better? How do they set themselves up for the future? I just think this is such a fun time of year leading up to the playoffs. And so I don't really have any particular storylines. I'm excited to see how all this plays out.
I just want to see the guys that are filling into their roles continue to play those roles well. Few that stick out to mind for me. Number one is the very easy one. Jonathan Drouin on the top line. Don't flame out. Continue to be that player. Continue to have that itch. Be that 45 to 55-point guy and stay there all year. Josh Manson had 1 assist in his first 19 games. He's got 6 goals and 16 points in his last 25 games. Like, that is wild. Continue to be that top 4 defenseman. Gerard and Bowen Byram need to kind of elevate. But then you go to the forward side. Logan O'Connor, obviously, has been on a scoring tear. He's not going to be that, but he's going to be Logan O'Connor. Miles Wood has 7 points in his last 6 games since being out for 7 months with the flu. Ross Colton's got 9 points in 7 games since Nichushkin was out. Let Wood, Colton, Drouin, Manson, all of these guys, O'Connor, don't take the foot off the pedal. Keep playing your role, because that's why we're having the conversations that we're having about this team having the depth. Because these guys have filled into these roles. Yeah, you struck out on Tatar, you traded him, you struck out on Johansson. We'll see where that goes. But the guys that are working, continue to do your thing so that you don't end up in a situation where you do what I'm saying. It's like, go out and get a depth center to play behind Olofsson as an extra. Go out and get a second-line center like Henrique or Monahan or whoever the hell. And then 3 games into the playoffs, you're like, Drouin is not cutting it. So now what? O'Connor's on your first line. Parise's on your first line. Those guys need to continue to play their roles so that when you fill out the roster, it's full steam.
Right, and so that way we're not at the end of the season saying what I was saying at the top of the show, and everybody's like, well, at least MacKinnon won the Hart.
Yeah,
Right.
Right. Yeah. Because
So, yeah.
they do have what it takes this year with those guys. I am so excited to see Wood, Colton, and these guys playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how they build off of what they were doing. Jesse and I mentioned that we feel like they're playing the best hockey right now that they have all year. Jared Bednar got into nitpicking details and making sure they keep improving. So I'm curious to see how they take that next step from here.
Yep.
But yeah, Aarif, thanks for hanging out with us today.
You're very
thanks for
welcome.
coming down.
That was fun. I knew this was kind of going to go long, and I kind of, in my head, I'm just like, it's the All-Star break. You know, I'd rather talk about all the things we spoke about for an hour and a half than who's going to win the $1 million. MacKinnon, Makar, Nylander, Matthews.
And I just saw a thing
McDavid.
yesterday that said $100,000. It's not $1 million. It's $100,000.
No, it's $1 million.
Bet me money. Chris Johnson was just tweeting about it yesterday.
No. He was tweeting. Maybe there's like some kind of
He was saying the winner of this competition gets $100,000. The winner of this competition gets $100,000. And that was it made sense to me why Cale said when someone asked him about it, he was like, "No, I'm not giving everyone $100,000. I don't think it's $1 million." That seemed crazy to me. They used to have the winning team split $1 million.
I promise you, it's $1 million. There was
Per event.
No, for the whole thing. No. So it's not per event. It is no. It's not.
Oh, because he was tweeting per event.
No. It's not per event. It's all the events. You're going to be scored. So the way it works, I listened to his podcast yesterday really quickly. The way it's going to work is there are X amount of events. Let's say 5. Fastest skater, hardest shot. This, that.
It's a score that you get at the end.
Yeah. So there's 8 events. Each of the participants, the 12 participants, have to pick 5 events they want to be in. The top 5.
Oh, and see, JJ, I'm already out. This is already more complicated than I wanted it to be.
It's gonna be really simple when you watch it because they're gonna do easy events. They're not gonna do the bullshit where you gotta shoot a puck into a little net or whatever.
See, and I thought those were the best events.
So here's what's gonna happen. Let's say us 3 were in a competition, or let's say there's 12 guys in a competition. There's 8 events. You have to pick 5.
Yeah.
So everybody's gonna pick their 5. So the hardest shot might only have 5 people. The fastest skater might have 12. The points are going to be similar to award voiding, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if there's only 5 people in the hardest shot, even last place is going to get a point. So after initially picking, players get a second chance to see if they want to move around. So now, if you're Cale Makar,
why'd they do this? Why'd they overcomplicate this? Just have
but
every player in every event.
We're not going to see every.
I know.
We're going to just see the final result. So, like, if you're Cale Makar, you're looking at the fastest skater. For whatever reason, you're like, all 12 people. I'm not confident I could be top 5 in that. I am confident I can beat one guy in the hardest shot. Let me switch to that. So now I can get guaranteed points here instead of that. So that's what's going to happen. And then they're going to run these events, total up the points. The winner gets $1 million. But it's taxed. That's what Cale Makar was saying. Right. He said, I don't think Bowen Byram knows how money works. If he gives everybody $100,000,
so if it's just
lose money.
If it's just one player getting $1 million, all right, that makes more sense.
So that's the way it's going to work.
I still think they found a way to mess this up already somehow by making it too confusing.
Let me go back to what I said 3 minutes ago. We didn't want to talk about that for an hour and a half, so I'm glad we went with my 17,000 hypotheticals. I prefer it.
Well, yeah, I guess that'll do it.
That's it.
Aarif, we'll have to have you on again.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
That was fun.
We out. Yeah.
No, I retired that.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
I started doing it again like 2 weeks ago.
But definitely, if you made it this far in the podcast, bless your heart.
Yeah, seriously,
that's for sure. Right. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Guerilla Hockey with JJ and Jesse featuring Aarif. We'll be back soon to talk some more Avs hockey. See you later.
Bye.